All right, here's example 1 and example 2. The first is just a basic clap. It is a nice sounding clap sample that I downloaded off of Splice. The second is a clap that I made for my band Angel Fire's latest single called Ride It Out. Acting so damn relevant. But what is it that makes these sounds so different? Do I just have access to some exclusive sample pack or maybe some really expensive fancy effects? Well, the answer is no. It's no. There are 3 main qualities that I look for in a clap. One is just for it to sound amazing and huge. I guess this might be kind of obvious, but there are cases where a smaller clap that just gets out of the way is better. But personally, I'm more of a fan of a star of the show type of clap. The second is for the sound to evolve over time in an interesting and organic way. I'm really looking for the sound itself to have a really interesting texture, but I'm also looking for a lot of textural variation from hit to hit. The last thing is just that the sound actually works within the context of everything else you made. It doesn't really matter if you've made the most life-changing, beautiful, self-affirming, universe-destroying clap if it just doesn't work in your song. As you might imagine, a decent amount of effort and experience is required to tick these 3 boxes. But if I were to sum it up into a single concept or technique, I would call that layering. So let's look at how I use layering to make the clap in my latest single called Ride It Out. My name is Sarah and I'm an electronic pop artist and producer. And this is how I make huge and organic sounding drums. So this sound was made out of 9 different layers, but I didn't just take 9 sounds, layer them all on top of each other and just press play. That would sound probably really bad. It would be embarrassing if you did that. You definitely should never do that. That would be so embarrassing. In order to make it sound natural, each layer has to play its own specific role. There are generally 4 that I look to fulfill: the body, texture, transient, and the last is meat. So when I look for samples to build a layered clap out of, I will look for ones that can fulfill the specific roles. For my body sample, I'm looking for something with a nice mid-range and is generally pretty normcore. I'm looking for a clap is a clap is a clap is a clap type of sample here. For my meat sample, I'd like something with a strong low end. So I usually look for something with a nice clear fundamental around 100 or 200 hertz. If you don't know what transients are already, that is the very, very, very beginning of the sound. This part of the sound is super, super important. It's absolutely essential to have a single clear transient in your drum sounds. The texture samples are really the most fun. I really like the sound of this clap. It's perfect because it's really easy to cut up and rearrange and then take those layers and pitch them up and down or change them in volume or do whatever it is I need to do to them to make it even more texturier. When it comes to arranging the samples in time, it's really just a process of trial and error. You know, taking a layer and moving it back a 1024th note and then hearing how that sounds and then moving another layer forward a 1024th note and then, you know, it sounds terrible and you hate yourself. Just kidding, it sounds great. It sounds fantastic, okay? There are a few general points about arranging samples in time worth remembering. For the transient layer, it's really, really important that it hits before all of the other sounds. I usually like to bring the transient layer actually before the beat, so it really helps the clap stick out in the mix. For the meat layer, I usually like to have it somewhere in the middle of the sound, or like the middle towards the beginning. If it happens too late, then it doesn't really support the sound in the way that it needs to, and then it's just not doing its job. So once I got all of these samples arranged in a way that I liked, I grouped them all together and then I processed them all as a single sound. I really did a lot of processing here. I added some EQ, compression, clipping, some limiting, and I added Ujam's finisher flux set to Bonham's booth just to get a little bit of slapback delay sort of effect. So now I have a sound that I like quite a lot. But there is one last very, very important step to get that sweet, sweet, organic, natural variation from hit to hit. And that is to go through each layer and rearrange the order in which the samples happened for every hit. So in this 16-bar phrase, there is a slightly different arrangement for every single one. If we compare these 2 hits, we can see that the meat layer is pitched down a step in the second hit, Real clap is pushed back a whole 30-second note, and the order of these texture layers is slightly changed.